Hi guys, this is Nathan Tusi with your daily review. Just want to go ahead and cover the news first, as always. It is about 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and the daily candles are getting close to closing, so we'll be able to cover those with some pretty good accuracy. The first news to note is the 9:30 p.m. Australian news, which is trade balance, and as you've noticed, we've got a lot of Australian news lately. And then we also have 11:30 odd news, so that will affect how the Australian dollar moves, obviously. Today we had a lot of odd weakness, so we will see if that turns around or continues with tonight's news. Tomorrow during the New York session, it's all Canadian news, so we have employment change, trade balance, employment rate, and then actually we have US dollar trade balance at the same time. So CAD and US dollar both coming out with some news there, and that will play a role in how some of the currencies we covered today act in tomorrow's New York session. All right, let's jump into the charts. The euro dollar today began with a rally, but was rejected at a pretty key level. The bottom here. You can see that if you actually pull this all the way down to the bottom of the tail, it's almost to the pip of this tail here. I can zoom that up for you a little bit to show you perhaps a little bit better. But you see that right at this level was right where this was rejected and right where this was rejected. So definitely a key level there that has held up. Even with that key level holding up, we still have this nice V-shaped pattern, which leads us to believe that price, is going to continue up. But as of now, we just have a stall bar in this area, and it's probably not advised to make a trade until it either breaks through this level and continues, or is rejected and has a bearish bar. Obviously, the two patterns we're looking for here are one that would break through this level, retest, and then go, or one that would, from this after this retest, show continuation to the downside. So for a long, we're looking for a break, retest, and explosion. For a short, we're looking for an explosion to the downside. Either one has a lot of room for movement. The next major resistance level would be up here for a long. And then, of course, on the short side, you could perhaps expect it to make new lows. So two good trade opportunities there on the euro dollar, of course, depending on which signal we see. And that is my daily analysis for the euro dollar. I want to look at the US yen because we broke a key level here. The US yen was a very significant resistance at this trend line that I've drawn here, and you can see that it was tested many times. We talked about this in yesterday's review, but today yen was the weakest currency, and you can see that that clearly showed by this break here. Okay, so a very significant break with the US yen, and obviously the movement is upward. Now, a few different things that can happen here. The market, as we know, is always attempting to move in the direction that is going to cost people the most money. Okay, that's how a market works. The more people who are short, it's going to attempt to move long and take that money, and the more people who are long, it's going to attempt to take that money. So a few different scenarios here. One is that this could be a break that's a fake out, and it's getting people to jump on long, and it's ready to snap back to the downside. That's one scenario. Another scenario is that this is a legitimate break, and people who are holding on to shorts up here or up here or up here are going to get totally squeezed out, and it's going to crush all of the longer term short holders. A different scenario would be that if it reversed right away, got people back on short, and then launched back up. Okay, so a few different things that can happen there, but the moral of the story is that they all lead to trapping people in the market. That's the goal of the market is obviously to trap people as much as it can. So Obviously, there's no way of telling if this is a legitimate breakout, but one way that you can wait and have a better opportunity at predicting this is see if it does build a base here and then make a launch. If it does build a base, a consistent base, and then launches, that adds a lot of legitimacy to a long breakout in this situation. As I've said for quite a while now, I think that this US yen downtrend is for real. I think that US yen is eventually heading back down to lower levels, at least to 76. So my overall opinion is that this is headed down, but just because it's headed down doesn't mean that it's not going to go up to some extent first. Okay, so a lot of different things that can happen on the way down. We will have to wait and see what the scenario is there. All right. Let's go ahead and look at the pound dollar. Okay, so the pound dollar, like we mentioned yesterday, broke this level and was a good long opportunity. We talked about that in yesterday's video, and I mentioned that in a trade like this, you normally would put your stop below this bar if you're going long, or you could perhaps use a 4-hour and tighten up your stop. Now, if you did the latter and tightened up your stop, you may or may not have survived this centering tail. This is very common in the market, and it's oftentimes why we use the bottom of the bar to make our stop loss, because oftentimes we get on the next bar, even if it is heading up, that it centers down into the middle of this bar, which you can see that it did before moving up. So hopefully if you went long there, your stop was just safe enough to keep you in the trade and to catch some pips on the upside. Now, it did move up significantly. However, it was stopped right at this resistance level, which you can see is a pretty key level. It has some correspondence throughout this choppy market, and this is the key point right here, which pound came all the way up and tested that basically to the pip and has backed off. So again, a few different opportunities to make trades here. It depends on how price interacts from here. Let me draw the scenarios like I did on the other chart. Okay, number one, you can get a break, a test, and a launch. Number two, you could get a total collapse from here back into the zone. Or number three, you could get a test and then a collapse. Okay, so those are the three main scenarios I could see happening here. And as a trader, we can make money from any of those three as long as we are anticipating them. So I would advise you not to go short until it breaks this level and then test it again. A lot of times what will happen is that it'll break right through and never test it. And of course in that scenario you'd miss a lot of pips. But sometimes it requires a trader to miss pips in order to cash out a majority of the time. So sure, there's going to be times where you miss great trades, but overall it'll save you money in the long run to wait for higher probability setups. And in my opinion, a break, a retest, and then a move is a higher probability than just hoping that the breakthrough actually maintains itself. All right, that would obviously be the scenario if it does break. Now the scenario where if it comes up and just tests some more and heads back down, normally you don't have as much time, because if it tests once and then again, it's not extremely likely that you're going to get a third test, but a good opportunity to short would be at least one more test and then a tail heading in the downward direction. If it does that, the ideal situation would be to have as tight a stop as possible, because your profit potential into the zone is not very long. It's not very many pips just to get back into here. So, excuse my little drawing error there. So we don't have a lot of room for profit potential. Okay, so if it tests and makes a move back to the downside, you really do want to have a tight stop, and assuming that you're going to be targeting down here where these other prices have stalled out, you don't have much room for profit potential, which means in order to make it a sound trade, you'd probably want to tighten your stop pretty good. That's scenario 2. Scenario 3 is that if it doesn't test, just tomorrow's bar goes straight down. And in that scenario, I would probably avoid taking a trade altogether, because by the time this bar closes, you've basically lost all your profit potential already. And the last thing you want to do is get into a trade after all of the profit potential is already gone. Okay, so the two scenarios that I would advise making an entry on, as you saw, were a break, test, and continuation, or as another test and a continuation to the downside. Alright, that is my analysis for pound dollar. Let's go ahead and move along. Next, we will look at the Australian dollar, US dollar. As we mentioned yesterday, the Australian dollar had an exploding bar to the upside, bouncing off this trend line and then really moving upward fast. You can see that this is a nice example of a trade just kind of rounding out at the bottom. So we had some testing, a few smaller bars, and then one large bar, and a good explosion to the upside. Today, AUD was significantly weaker than yesterday, obviously, so we had some stalling out, but also we had the little base point here where it started this turn. So we have a turn here, and we have a stall here. So we have a nice little smiley face. We can put some eyes in here, and we've got a cute little trade here. But on a more serious note, this stalling bar can do one of two things. A stall bar, by its nature, by the definition of stall, means that it's stalling out for the next move upward. So you could expect a very large follow through over the next few days in this direction. Or a stall bar can be an actual stall for continuation to the downside. So my advice would be, again, I know this is always my advice, but my advice would be to go ahead and wait to see which side it follows through. Because if you get a bullish bar up here, you have a lot of room before you're at your next level or what have you. So even if you have to wait till the close of the next daily bar, you still have a lot of room to gain pips in the upward direction. If you get a bullish bar, or excuse me, if you get a bearish bar, which would be a bar headed downward, obviously, you have a pretty decent amount of room to the trend line. Okay, so really in either direction here, you have some room. I think it would pay off to be patient and wait for your next signal. All right, let us look at the pound yen. The pound yen was a rounding out trade as well, except for this one actually continued in its direction to the upside because of pound strength and also yen weakness. So this is basically the same thing as the AUD, except for we have 1, 2, 3, and 4 bars in a row, and the fourth bar is almost as big as the third bar. So we have two significant bars in a row moving to the upside. Now there is a little base here that it's going to have to deal with. That was not a very straight line, but it's not extremely significant. We don't have just a massive level, so there is definitely potential for this to move upward. If pound yen does continue to move in an upward direction, our next level will be this level. You can see that this is significant. Okay, so that provides a good amount of room. Hopefully, if you're long on this, you're long all the way down here, and you already have a significant amount of profit locked in, and you're just waiting for the continuation. Getting in at the point we're in now, say if it came back and made another level, would probably be a good trade, but obviously nothing compares to getting in at a much lower price. All right, let us look at EURCAD. EURCAD was another pair that we mentioned that we were looking for trend continuation. Here we had a nice bounce and a good bearish bar, but because Euro has shown a lot of strength lately, we have not really continued to move down, even though CAD has been strong, or excuse me, CAD has been, strong. Man, I'm losing my mind. CAD has shown strength, which would lead us to, expect downward direction, which is what this play would be based off. A short here is based off CAD strength continuing this downtrend. But Euro has actually shown significant amount of strength. You saw that today we started off with a move to the downside, but then it kind of capped back up, and now we're basically around the similar price that we started the day off with. So in order for CAD to go ahead and actually continue down, we're going to need either some significant CAD strength or euro to show some weakness. And my bet is that a lot of that is going to have to do with the news tomorrow, because we have a ton of Canadian news tomorrow. So depending on how that news plays out, this could be a great continuation of the downtrend, or it could be a reversal and it could break right through the top of this trend line. So hopefully, if you're short up here, you have a pretty tight stop and you're not risking too much. Perhaps you've already moved your stop up to down here when the trade was in your favor and got stopped out with profit, which would not be a bad trade. Alright, let's just look at one more pair on our daily outlook, and we can be done here. That's a pretty quick outlook, but I think we covered the major things, looking at what was weak and what was strong. Euro pound is what I want to look at last, because we saw that euro was strong today, but so was pound. Okay, so you see that pound won this battle, and that's all I wanted to point out here. I like to look at euro pound just to get an idea of which is stronger, euro or pound. Here we see that we're obviously in a knife fight. Neither one is controlling the direction of this pair, but you do see that today's bar was down, and all that means is that pound was stronger than euro, and we saw that based on how pound yen moved, and also how euro backed down against the pound. So in this situation, we see that we have more pound strength than euro strength, and that is a good indicator of what we should be pairing our other currencies with. For instance, if you're looking at a euro-yen trade based on euro strength, you might want to consider a pound-yen trade, because pound has been stronger. Okay, that's about it for the daily review. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope it gave you a good outlook for your trading. Please leave some comments as to what you're looking at and any questions you might have. Thank you very much, and we'll talk soon.